boom, 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 da 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 da. Really should have done this closer to a road, but I guess I'll just improvise. Sure hope nobody on that train had anywhere important to go, cause I'm gonna need that to stop for a little while. Man, I never realized just how convenient the train tracks were. For those of you that have been living under a rock for the past 3 or so years and don't have any idea what this game is, it's a game called Watch Dogs. Watch Dogs is Ubisoft's latest AAA sandbox game. There's a lot of hype and a lot of controversy surrounding this game, so we're going to see how much of it we can tackle and see if Ubisoft delivered on the game that they promised us a few years ago. Let's go ahead and get the big one out of the way first. No, this game does not look anywhere near as good as it did in all of the E3 trailers. In fact, despite me being able to record at 1080p, I couldn't even get this thing to record at anything above 720. Despite not looking exactly how we expected it to look from the trailers, the game does look really good. It's definitely worthy of being a current-gen title. I, for one, am very impressed with what they've done here, especially things like clothes and environments look really fantastic. Not so keen on the way character faces look, but, you know, I'll take what I can get. Driving is another big thing I wanted to talk about. People everywhere are complaining that the driving is bad, and the driving itself isn't bad. Turning is bad. When you're actually driving on the road, bobbing and weaving through cars itself doesn't actually feel that bad. It's just when you actually have to stop and turn around or something, it gets really awful. This is incredibly noticeable when you're being chased by police. The only real way to turn around a corner is to put the handbrake on, turn really hard, and then crash into something, come to a complete stop, and then start going in the direction you wanted to go. Not the worst driving in any video game ever, but it gets pretty darn close sometimes. Pretty darn close. The police also aren't really that big of an issue. If you'll notice here, both of the police cars, which you'll see as kind of glowing dots on my radar there, completely lost me and just stopped their cars, didn't even try looking for me anymore, and all I had to do was drive slightly out of my way and all of a sudden I'm not even on the most wanted anymore. I feel like Ubisoft really wanted to make some Grand Theft Auto-like magic happen here, and even though it does come kinda close, it really doesn't hit the same sweet spot that Grand Theft Auto Destruction has. You see, when you mess with stuff in this world, everybody looks a little bit kind of annoyed that you did it, but nobody really seems to care enough to actually have some kind of impact. Just getting one police car to come and chase after you so you can have a high-speed chase is ridiculously hard because nobody really cares how much damage you do to anything. You can crash into cars, destroy street signs, you can cause traffic jams, you can do all kinds of things, but as long as you're not directly hitting or influencing one person, then no cop cares. So as far as just mindless destruction goes, I'd say this isn't quite on the Grand Theft Auto level. Imagine going to the beach, finding a young kid, and knocking down his sandcastle. You want him to get angry and react. That's the entire reason you took the time to come over and knock his sandcastle down, is because you want to ruin his stuff and have him be affected by that. But instead, he just kind of gives you a shocked look and then goes and sits by another sandcastle and waits with his head in his hands for you to come to destroy it so it can be shocked by that as well. It kind of takes some of the fun out of breaking the rules if nobody really cares that you're breaking the rules. One fun thing about sandboxing around town is your phone has a lot of apps that can help you find things to do. Bringing up your apps is done by pushing up on the D-pad, but controlled with the right stick, which feels very natural, because you can actually move around and look for an app to use at the same time. One of the apps you'll be using the most often is something called Car on Demand, where you can actually go through and look at the cars you've unlocked and have one brought to you at pretty much any time. I think the only real problem I have with this app, though, is sometimes when you bring a car up, the car is brought somewhere so ridiculously far out of your way that it's a chore to actually get over to it. And it just takes so long sometimes to run towards the car that you summoned that it's almost not worth it. See, I could have just hijacked any of the cars here in the middle of this road, and it would have been a lot easier. This is a sandbox, so it isn't super important, but I am going to go over the story a little bit. The basic premise is you're a hacker named Aiden Pierce who wants to get revenge on this organization that decided to have one of your nieces assassinated. They figured since you're a thorn in their side, they could get rid of somebody close in your family and you would give up hacking altogether.
They were very, very wrong, as all it did was fuel you to go after them more. Overall, the quality of the story isn't very good. Ubisoft has this weird habit of creating good, decent, solid characters and then putting them into a story that really doesn't matter. Every once in a while they'll get it right, like with Prince of Persia and Assassin's Creeds, but most of the time it's closer to your Red Steel, Rayman, Tenchu. These games with honestly very likable characters, but ridiculously dumb stories. Unfortunately, I can't really show you any of the story stuff. I've noticed that game companies tend to get very angry at me when I try to show cutscenes, but they're perfectly okay with gameplay, so I'll just talk about some of the story. Like, there's this part where you go see your sister very early in the game, no spoilers here, but there's this part where you go see your sister, who is also the mother of the girl that was killed. Keep in mind, that wasn't her only child, she also has a son. While Aiden is visiting her, she gets a phone call from somebody claiming that they're going to break into her house and kill her son. Aiden hears this phone call and offers to do something about it. But instead, Aiden's sister decides, nah, it was just a crank call, don't even worry about it. Yep, that is exactly how a mother who lost one of her children would act when they heard that somebody wanted to come to their house and kill their only other child. It was just a crank call. They couldn't possibly get into this house. Yeah, okay. Now that we've got the weak story out of the way, let's talk about gameplay. Gameplay. There is a stupid amount of stuff to do. I'm serious, this game is jam-packed with stuff for you to do. One of the most common side missions you have is Aiden acts as sort of like a vigilante. He looks for people who are about to commit crimes, and he stops them. By turning the profiler on your phone, you can see the personal data of the people around you. When your phone picks up that somebody is going to commit a crime, you can go stalk them for a little while and wait for them to actually try to commit their crime. This is your chance to play Batman and go and try to stop the crime before it actually takes place. There's a lot of factors at work here. First of all, the game doesn't actually want you to kill anybody. If you walk up to them and push the circle button, Aiden will go have a little fight with them and then knock them out. This is admittedly a little bit disappointing because you don't actually do close combat in this game. You walk up to somebody, push the circle button, and Aiden does all of the fighting for you. But once that's done, you get experience points. The amount you get are based on a number of factors, ranging from how fast you were to stopping them before they were able to commit the crime, whether or not you had to kill them in order to stop them, and whether or not they saw you. These side missions also raise your reputation, which makes it easier for you to get around. One thing that Watch Dogs gets really right is the amount of things that you can do. Wandering around the city, you find things to do that are side missions, but they aren't side missions in the sense that you're doing the same thing you normally do just as a side mission, but you find legitimate extra things to do. For example, you can find this game where you're running around collecting these 8-bit looking-ish coins while avoiding red skulls. You could stop by a bar and have a drinking contest. Do you like chess? We got that too. The side missions only get bigger and crazier as time goes on. How much bigger and crazier, you ask? Yeah, I'm not even going to bother trying to explain this. All you need to know is this is just the tip of the iceberg, and yes, it is as much fun as it looks. While we're on this subject, this is a good time to talk about some of the technical stuff. The gun plays just fine, aiming works, shooting works. One kind of strange thing is a lot of the guns in the game have strange sound effects that don't really fit. It's not really a big deal or anything, but it is kind of a funny thing to point out. The actual free-running controls work pretty good too. The controls feel very, very reminiscent of Assassin's Creed, which makes sense because it is Ubisoft. You hold down one button to run, and then while you're running you can hold down another button to free run over objects in your way. This does get annoying every once in a while because sometimes Aiden will completely ignore the thing you're trying to free run onto and run into something else entirely, but for the most part I haven't had that many problems. You level up fairly fast, and every time you level up, you get a skill point that you can put into improving one of your skills. The basic stuff that you expect is there, hacking, combat, so on and so forth. The really interesting thing is the progression meter. As you complete different tasks around town, you can unlock these permanent upgrades that are a lot of fun to get. It's better than just going after stupid achievements that show up as trophies in your trophy data, because these actually give you stuff in the game. And you can unlock everything from just cosmetic upgrades like costumes to cars and guns and things that actually help you out in the game. The one big, huge thing that everybody's probably waiting on bated breath for me to start talking about is the hacking. Does it work? Is it cool? So on and so forth, whatever. The hacking is really neat and does work pretty well. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, one thing Watch Dogs boasted was that you would be able to manipulate the environment by using your cell phone. You can do it, and it does work really well. You can hijack security cameras so that you can get better range and check out extra areas. You can use the hacking to open up doors and locks, make things explode, cause traffic accidents. There are lots and lots and lots and lots of little things you can manipulate in the environment using your cell phone. Here's the thing about the hacking, though. I don't think the hacking should be boasted as, like, a main feature of Watch Dogs. I know, like, half of you just thumbs down the video and have no idea what I'm talking about anymore, but let me explain myself. While the hacking is really cool, the main reason you would hack is to make the gameplay go smoother. Like, if you're chasing some kind of criminal, you can hack his escape path to make it less likely for him to get away. If you're in a car chase, you can hack the traffic lights to make the police behind you crash. If you're stealthing around and you need to hack something that's out of your way, then you can hack a security camera so that you can see into another place where you can start hacking. See, the hacking makes everything else in Watch Dogs more enjoyable. It's not necessarily that you're in the game to hack, you're just using the hacking to make the game more fun. Putting it another way, you won't just run around hacking stuff, because if you just ran around in the game hacking stuff, then the game would get really boring because you're not really accomplishing anything. On the other hand, if you're out chasing criminals and getting into car chases and stealthing around, that stuff is where you'll find your fun, and the hacking makes that more enjoyable. The other side of hacking is this neat little feature that lets you look into the personal information of all the NPCs. You'll normally get one or two little lines of dialogue about their backstory, and it's actually pretty humorous, and the fact that they have this many is just amazing. It really makes the town you're in feel a lot more alive. From a gameplay standpoint, you can also use this chance to steal somebody's information and then use that information at the ATM to empty out their bank accounts, and that's how you get a lot of your money. Last but not least, let's talk about the online components. Unfortunately, I'm not going to talk much about the online components because I don't find them all that interesting. The way the online works is every once in a while you'll get pulled out of the game and put into an online situation where you can have a race, you can play a little bit of capture the flag, and all of it's good, but the game is just as good without them. They just feel a little tacked on, and it feels like the only reason they're there is because every game needs some online components now. I'm sort of ignoring the online and only playing the single player, which is why I don't have any footage for it and why I won't talk too much about it, because I don't know that much about it because it's not that interesting to me. If I do end up doing a bunch of online stuff, maybe I'll put up another video, or maybe I'll just change the description of this video to let you know how I feel about it. We've been talking for like 15 minutes, and I could obviously go on. You know I could go on, but we need to wrap this up pretty soon. I've never been a big fan of numbered reviews, and I could explain why, but I think one of my heroes at Acorn Films can do it way better.
This is why I don't do numbered scores, like most sites. How do you average graphics with story with controls and get a number? How are any of these things equal? Some of these things are window dressing and some are fundamental. Many people consider chess to be the greatest game of all time. How do you think it would fare if you had to average in story?
Thinking on this, I wondered to myself what I could possibly do to tell you whether or not I think this game is worth getting. And here's what I came up with. I believe every game is worth something and has some kind of price point. So I'll just tell you whether or not I think the game is worth its full $60 price tag. And it just happens to be in the case of my first review using the system that, yes, I do believe that the game is worth its $60 price tag. The game gives you so much to do that can easily keep you entertained for over 50 hours. Even though the story is kinda bad, you'll want to stick around with the story to unlock all of the map. And afterwards, this game could keep you entertained for weeks. There's multiplayer if you're into that kind of thing, there's lots of different things to do, and just going and destroying stuff and getting chased by the cops by itself is pretty fun. Aiden is also a really fun guy to pal around as. The few problems that Watch Dogs does have, like the story not being very good, the hacking not being quite as important as they advertise, the online not being that good, and some noticeable lag a little later in the game, don't take away from my recommendation at buying this game at full value. I predict this game won't be going down in price anytime until late 2015 anyway, so you might as well pick it up and enjoy it with us. If you enjoyed my review, then it would really help me out if you gave me a like. Have your own thoughts on the game? Then leave it in the comments section below. And finally, subscribe to stay up to date on the latest Kudou news. Until next time, gamers, this is Kudou signing off.